put there by the Board of Supervisors. It has to do with this work session, the twice monthly work session that we convene at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. This work session has been inaugurated for, we think it's something in close to 30 years, but I'm not sure it's that long, but it's been in existence for a goodly amount of time. It was done for the purpose of increasing government participation, accessibility, and transparency. Now, however, it seems to be taking on an unintended consequence. It appears to be causing derision. It appears to be being used as a forum for criticism, and it certainly has produced some very divisive situations in the township. And I will offer this as something that some of you probably know. It's a newsletter, Scudder, you well know this. This has caused a lot of discussion, dissension. It contains some rather harsh things. It contains some strong mistruths, but I won't go into them now. We'll go into that later if we need to. This whole intent appears to be an attack on Kennett Township government. This is a government that I've been proud to be part of for many years. It has served this township very, very well in the past. To make many examples, it certainly has provided budget surpluses for the last 15 or more years. We have received a lot of pressure to not take any action at these work sessions, which was in part one of the reasons they were inaugurated in the first place. I therefore am going to move that Kennett Township suspend these twice monthly work sessions, which are now known in this newsletter as While the Public is at Work sessions. This will also terminate the task force effort that has been put together. And with that motion, I would ask for a second, please.
Second.
Okay. Now, is there any discussion? Would you like to say anything, Scudder?
Thank you for the opportunity. The newsletter that you referred to is not my newsletter.
Oh,
So
really?
the implication that I have something to do with that is ill-founded. It certainly has been a long-term festering concern that the work sessions occur during the day when people, not everybody obviously, but most people between the ages of 18 voting age and retirement age generally are working during the day and they cannot be here. And I know various people who cannot be here that have great concerns about issues that are on the agenda that want to be heard, and they can't be because they can't be here. So I suspect that the reason why the name was listed there that you read was chosen was because it accurately reflects that concern while people are working. I think it would be unfortunate if we did not have the work sessions. I think it would be, instead of being canceled completely, that it would be appropriate to have them at a reasonable hour in the late afternoon or preferably in the evening.
That has been tried. Excuse me, I don't want to interrupt you. You continue, please.
So I would much prefer that it be handled as an evening meeting. But if the motion is to cancel it, then I will not stand in. I don't have the power. I'm just one out of two. My preference would be the evening, but if it's to be canceled, it's to be canceled.
I was very careful in reading my motion was to suspend.
Suspend.
It is not to cancel.
I did send an email to the supervisors last night.
I saw
Because
it.
this has been a constant criticism of the township having these work sessions. And I suggested a couple of years ago that the supervisors either cancel them and handle everything at the Monday night meeting,
That's correct.
or have one a month, and that's it. And of course, now in the past, we've tried to make sure there's no voting taken at the work session. But I just feel that, why not handle everything at the public meeting?
Well, it's fortunate because the Untitled Township Code for townships such as ours provide for a once-a-month evening meeting. Okay? And therefore, we will revert back to what the law says.
Or why not have one a month at
We're
3?
gonna- We're gonna suspend them all until further notice. That's the motion that's on the table. Yes,
Discussion?
sure.
Bill McLaughlin. To Lisa's point, she said that the work sessions have come under criticism.
Yes, they
And I think that needs a little clarification.
Okay.
From the standpoint, is it the actual work session that is criticized? Or is it the fact that it is held during the day and hence it's not available to a great
Bill-
It's
portion?
because it's held during the day.
Okay. Secondly, my concern about pushing what the supervisors try to do at this work session into a board of supervisors meeting is that you're going to cram an agenda. You're going to then, in order to achieve that agenda, you're going to then potentially eliminate a lot of discussion, which I think is healthy for a township.
I agree with that, but Bill, I have to suggest that for years before I was even here, once a month, township meetings were held. Business that was necessary to be transacted was transacted. And I was careful to use the word suspend. If we find that our monthly meetings are crammed and have the kind of problem that you might be envisioning, we will revisit the subject, okay? Are there any other comments? Over here, please.
Yeah. Peter Murray. Just to Scudder's point, I changed a trip in China to get back here in time for this, so this is really important to me. But it is an inconvenient time to be here. People do work, and so you kind of look around, see who's here. So I think that having an accessible meeting, one, is really important. And two, just a little note from sort of the importance of this. When I was in China and working on some projects in the rural part of China, one of the discussions we're having is the government likes to set up exclusion zones and dictate what gets done for people, by people. It's a different country, different place. But, you know, it doesn't rub me the right way, that kind of thing. So more access, more openness, more ability to have dialogue on this is pretty important. So.
We're not eliminating that, remember that.
Yes, but when you talk about suspending, you talk about holding something, you're down a path to try to cut that off. So I think the discussions going on today is how do you make this more open, how do you make it more accessible? So you're talking about putting something on hold. You're not talking about finding a way to make it more open and more engaging for citizens participating. You're talking about finding a way to shut it down, which is half as well.
Try not to put words in my mouth, because that's not my intent. My intent is to make sure that we are effectively communicating in this county. If there is reestablished a need for this kind of forum, we will do it instantly. And I promise you that. Bob?
Yeah, Bob Listerman, Kennett Township. What I would recommend while you're reviewing this during this time of suspension, and I hope we're going to continue today's meeting while we're here,
We
but
are.
I'd recommend for you to consider having one like this at 1 o'clock and perhaps one a month during the evening. That way you'd be serving both residents and business owners, because business owners might be more likely to come during this time versus having to sacrifice another evening that they might have with their family, and vice versa.
Okay.
In my personal opinion, if the issue is important enough, most people, I just say most, not all, will make time.
Okay, thanks, good idea.
May
Any other
I
comments?
say something?
Yeah.
I don't think we should have one during the day at all. That's been the biggest criticism. So what if you guys had one?
Well, why don't we talk about this? There's a motion on the table.
I just want to make my
Go
suggestion
ahead, please.
that you guys have one once a month at 3 or 4 o'clock.
We tried that.
I'm just saying once a month, that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I know that you tried that.
Everything is on the table to redo this kind of communication. There's no idea that I've heard here that is not going to be considered, and if you have others, we'd be happy to listen to them. But in the meantime, this is what we're going to be doing. Jeff, you had a question?
Just that 3 or 4 o'clock is the same as 1 o'clock for people that work. The evening is the way to go.
We tried that for 3 months and nobody came.
At 3 or 4 o'clock, yes.
Yeah.
No one's going to
Bill,
come.
did you have a comment?
Yes, I did. In the past, there's been some other proposals on, not a workshop session, but having 2 sessions in the evening a month. I think there are other townships in this region who do that. They have
Who are
just,
they, please?
I think New Garden does it. They have, I think the first and third Mondays or Tuesdays, whatever it is. And that's been proposed to this board in the past. So while you're suspending this operation, you ought to look at some of the other townships and how they handle it as well.
Okay.
Whether you call it a workshop session or 2 official Board of Supervisors meeting is up to you. Secondly, did you say you're going to cancel the task force issue?
At the moment, it will be suspended just as this work session, because the task force issue seems at this moment to have lost all its traction.
Do you have a suggestion how
Not
to
yet.
replace that and address some of these very important issues?
Not yet,
The
no.
3 of them need to get together and figure it
No.
out.
We will
Well,
do that.
yes, we've said that, and you've said that a couple times now in the last 2 or 3 months. I think when you talked about derisive issues and the derisive attitude that's in the township today, and things like hundreds of people really addressing the problems that we have, you have to look at why is it derisive? There are issues out here that are annoying and unacceptable to a lot of residents in this township. So before you call it derisive, you've got to understand and appreciate some of the issues that are objected to by the residents of our township.
Thank you, Bill. My comment about derision among many indirect ways, there's a very strong one here in this Scudder Stevens newsletter. Okay? And I don't like it, but it's not here to be debated. This is not the forum for this particular comment, which is on page 2 in the lower right, which I'm sure you'll be able to see. Are there any other comments?
What does it say with my name on it that's on that newsletter?
Are there any other comments?
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
you accuse me personally, and I'm asking you what in there accuses me. It's not my newsletter, and if you look at the name of the people that produced it, my name
Supervisor
isn't there.
Stevens reaches out. Your name is Scudder's blog.
Yeah, that's not my blog. That's a newsletter, and has nothing to do with mine.
Okay, I'm not gonna go into that any further. Yeah, there. One last comment.
Is there a possibility for a modified proposal, or are you only gonna vote on it?
If you have another idea, please go ahead and tell me.
Could the proposal be modified in following some of the discussion today to try to have, an evening session that would work, and try to shift the work session to either once or twice a month, but to try to modify it rather than suspend, and try that, and then maybe have some follow-on discussion of how to engage more of the citizens.
Okay, I think we're on the same page on that, because when we suspend this, we hope it's going to be temporary, and we will reintroduce the idea that is a result of people's comments here and elsewhere. And if it's in the evening, it will be done by consensus idea. If it's some other time, if it's once or twice, it will be done by consensus.
Well, I was suggesting perhaps that you not go through the suspension, to actually modify the meeting time, not necessarily the format.
We have to, those were been absent.
We don't know, we don't have a concrete proposal because we haven't gone through public input.
I suggest that the suspension may be not followed through on, and vote that down, to give yourselves time to come up with another proposal.
That motion is on the table, it's been seconded. Are there any other comments about the motion?
Yes, in furtherance to your idea, the Sunshine Law has a provision which allows for the very situation that is being discussed. That is a regular meeting in which there is more comments that can be dealt with, subjects that can be dealt with, and this is Section 710.1 of the Sunshine Law. If the supervisors determine that there's not sufficient time for a meeting for public comments, the comment period may be deferred to the next regular meeting or to a special meeting occurring before the next regular meeting. So that if in a regular meeting there's a lot of discussion around any issue, any 5 issues, the supervisors could agree that we will hold a special meeting, again conferring with the residents as to an evening or whenever, Saturday or whatever it might be, to everyone's mutual agreement, and do such a
In
thing.
that particular case, and I'm somewhat familiar with that part of it, that would be a continuation of the monthly meeting.
Yes.
It would be a one-time continuation.
For the specific agenda.
We're trying to get a little bit beyond that. We're
I
trying to
see.
schedule something on a regular basis, but that's a good point. Okay, this will be the last comment, please.
Don Edberg, sorry, guys. I'm sort of surprised that the way you characterize the working meetings. I had assumed that they were basically working meetings, but it sounded to me like you were saying that the working meetings had a more negative character than the monthly meetings. Is that really the way it's been going?
The way we see it, well, that's all I can say, whether it's a fact or not, it's in your own mind. The way we see it, it is an opportunity, another opportunity for derision.
To attack the township government.
The wide
Pussy, right?
use of the word derision, okay? It's not just that reason.
Well, you said it was, your intent was to attack the township government, so I was surprised at that.
No, I'm sorry, I really have to step in here and say, I feel that's the intent of my comment to you. And I still feel that way. And that's my feeling. And I'm elected to use judgment reflected by any inputs among which are feelings of other people as well as my own. Thank you. I now call the question. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 1. Okay. Now, we'll get on with our agenda, if you don't mind. The first item,
Wait,
okay, go.
well, no,
Okay.
what do you have?
Well, the first item has been canceled, being the presentation by Tom, John, and Marco.
Well, they're coming, they're gonna come, well, they were coming April 25th, so I don't know, I'll have to discuss that with John and Tom and Marco.
At this moment,
They're not here
this
today.
subject is not.
But we do have to move forward. We do, just so you all know, we have our legal counsel coming at 2:30
Yeah.
to discuss the development. So,
I'm sorry, what did you say?
we have our attorney coming at 2:30, and they
Okay.
have to meet with him privately to discuss the development.
Yeah. And that would be executive session.
So I'll move forward.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Here's a revised public meeting agenda. I had to add the Clipper payment, which is the, final payment for the Avella pump station. And here it is, right here.
Okay.
It just came in today. This is it's for $26,379.83. The pump station is totally complete,
Okay.
so.
This is for Monday.
This is for Monday.
Mhm.
I added it to
Yeah.
public meeting agenda for Monday.
Under new business. All right, good.
Scudder, I don't know how much you're familiar with the Ashford sewer system.
With the what system?
Ashford?
Ashford is a development on the upper part of Route 52, just before you go onto Route 1. As you go north, it's on the left, it sets back a bit.
So the developer about 20 years ago walked away from the project. He had already put in the sewer system but didn't finish it. He put it in incorrectly and the system failed. And unfortunately, because the township is a co-permittee on all of those systems, the state required us to take over the system. So for the last 20 years, the township has been maintaining this system. There were only 16 homes on the system. The state said that we need more homes connected because it wasn't operating the way it should because it didn't have enough flow. So 4 more homes were added that right around there that had requested to be connected. over the past 10 years, I would say, 15 years, it's cost the township about $200,000 for the system. The residents in there pay, I think it's about $400 a quarter. So they pay a much higher fee than most other systems. We have a maintenance company that goes out there every month and monitors the system to see if it's working properly. The system's in failure again. Because unfortunately, when they fixed the system, they just patchwork fixed it. They didn't dig the system out and put a whole new system in. They were trying to fix what they had. So the system has failed again.
This was the township that you're talking about.
Well, the township had to go in and correct what was there. And so the township engineers went out and, rebuilt the sand beds and the filters, all kinds of, they've done.
But that's what has since failed because it was not done correctly.
It wasn't done correctly originally.
Well, a sand now only lasts for about 10, 15 years, something like that.
But it wasn't done correctly to begin with, by the builder.
I understand.
So now the township has to come up with a permanent fix for the system. And URS, our sewer engineer, has been working on that. He came in this morning and gave me 2 different options. One's $150,000, one's $170,000. I'm gonna put copies upstairs in your bin of all the paperwork. It's sort of confusing, the proposals, because you have to add these 2 proposals together, plus then there's sand that needs to be added in. And he gave me pictures of this, of what it would look like. He gave us 2 different pictures. One would be a building on the ground. This one is the first suggestion, a building. You all want to see it? Oh, I just It's a 60 by 60 building, which would be right behind somebody's home, which I said, I don't think the residents out there would appreciate that.
Is that more expensive?
That was more expensive, like 20,000. Right, this one, it seems like the better alternative, which is open beds. And they would have a fence around it. So, I have to schedule a meeting with all the homeowners out there, for the 3 of you, to meet with them, and our engineer will come and he will explain all of this to them, just so they understand what the options are. So I'm going to try to schedule for May 2nd in the evening at 7. The second system would have a small pump house, and then of course the beds are exposed. So next week, our sewer engineer is going to go out there and get a 5-gallon bucket of sewage from the system, take it to the maintenance garage, and do a air infiltration test to see if the air that they put in and the chlorine they put in eliminates the smell. Because he wants to make sure what he's proposing here eliminates the smell. So, I want to first of all make sure with all 3 of you that you guys are willing to have this meeting in a second.
Okay with me? We have to have.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure you guys are all available.
At least 2 or 3.
I'm available May 2nd.
Okay. So, I'm gonna give all of you guys, Mike hasn't seen any of this stuff. Bob handles sewer, so he has seen some of this. So Mike, I'm gonna give you and Scudder copies of all this. And then, I'll schedule the meeting, and Mark's gonna bring, our engineer's gonna bring PowerPoint presentation for all the residents out there. Okay? And here, I don't wanna give all 3 of you, here's your revised bill voucher. So I had to add Gilmore's bills and stuff in, and here's sewer,
Well, was it in the evening, May 2nd?
yes,
Yeah,
7.
7 o'clock. 7:30, did you say,
No,
or 7?
7.
7.
You need to get bottom one.
Sorry, that one.
You take one.
Mr. Chairman, one quick question on that, if I may. I see some townships desire us to get out of the sewage business, and they're selling their plants. Is there any,
We tried.
okay.
No,
Yeah.
we can't.
Nobody wants to touch that one.
They tried to sell it a
Yeah.
couple years ago,
Yeah.
and we
Give it a
thought
go.
Aqua was going
Yeah.
to take it, but they don't want it.
They smell the rat.
So to speak.
We talked, at our last work session about the Pico pole that needs to be moved out at, Falcons Lake.
Yeah, we saw it.
We
the
saw
other-
it.
yeah, we saw it on Tuesday.
On our
Okay.
road.
Well, I asked Bob Adams if we need to get a legal agreement from the homeowner that we're going to slope the bank in, their property. And his response was that if the homeowner's okay with it and they understand the scope of the excavation, just to do it, like give them written notice before it's done.
That's good. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Can I just ask maybe possibly a stupid question regarding the Ashford situation, and this is directed at Lisa. You know, Victoria Gardens, we pump over to the borough.
Yes.
Treatment plant. Why can't Ashford pump into Kenneborough, or do I
Because
assume?
it would cost a
Yeah.
ton of
Oh,
money
more,
to
much
run the
more.
line. The
Yeah,
lines,
more.
the furthest line from the borough is at McFarland and,
Right.
Rosedale.
Yes,
It would be too far.
probably be about 2 miles, what do you think? 1.5 miles.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty expensive stuff.
And just so you know, the township's also co-permittee on Ponds of Woodward, Balmoral, and Huntington. So we hope nothing ever happens, but
Pay for no failure.
Right.
yeah, if the homeowner associations out there get in trouble,
Mm-hmm.
then
That's right.
the supervisors
Correct.
are responsible to help them.
Putting it another way, the rest of the township has to chip in to fix it. That's the way it works.
I wanted to bring you guys up to date on, a letter you guys received from Tom Kelleher. You all received it about dirt bikes?
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah.
Yep,
This has been going on a long time.
that's good.
And so we're in the process of writing a letter now explaining to them that the resident out there is not prohibiting the law. This is a resident complaining that his neighbor's riding dirt bikes. And then he got his kids new dirt bikes and they're louder. But they're not violating any ordinance that we have. They're allowed to have dirt bikes, they're riding them on their property. I know Albert knows all about the decibel, but, the dirt bikes that he has are not dirt bikes that are causing a noise problem. He did a few times ride after 7 o'clock, and that, we told him they're not allowed to ride after 7 at night. But he did agree to put in additional berming behind his house to try to, help a little bit with his neighbor. But our zoning officer and I feel that we're at the point now where we can't keep debating this for them, because he's not doing anything wrong. And I don't know if you guys all read the letters,
Yep,
and what was your
Yeah.
opinion?
same opinion. We've been doing an awful lot of missionary work with the world. And I think it's just, we gotta stop because we have no authority other than that which is given to us in our ordinances, and if he's in compliance with the ordinance, 1 and 1 equals 2.
Yeah, I checked with zoning officer and Albert about it.
Yeah.
and Nothing we can, or should do.
Yeah. So if the letter is to be constructed, I think that would really be the crux of what we could say to him. We've done everything we can, and we can't do any more.
Is this an area where we do not have any clear ordinances in place to deal with nuisance and loud noises?
Albert, can you respond to that?
The nuisance ordinance says after 7 p.m. And we had a contractor out there after 7 p.m. who was cited for that disturbance. But
But there is a noise
We have a
level,
noise
correct?
ordinance too.
Yes, we did.
But we're not above that news order. He didn't
No.
take the mufflers off.
Right.
This is what is being determined active recreation, which is permitted during the daylight hours. And what happened here is not something that occurred previously. What occurs now, when that he's not in violation of any ordinances, and the zoning ordinance says active recreation. So that's how we determined it. If you took the mufflers off, then that might be a different story, because then the noise level goes up.
Right.
You didn't do that.
When you were investigating this, Chief, did you talk to the neighbors, even those in a new garden, to ask whether they have the same concerns and complaints that Keller has?
We've had no complaints from anybody in the Kennett Township development where this property is.
Right.
The complaints are coming from the East Marlboro side.
Or Eastman, that's right.
Well, they're coming, I knew what you meant, they're coming from the East Marlboro side. And there is a multi-jurisdictional level,
Right.
law in Pennsylvania. East Marlboro Township could cite him if they feel it's in violation of one of their ordinances, because it's stemming from Kennett Township. But you run into the same issue, it's active recreation. He's not above the noise level because he didn't take the mufflers off. And some things happen like, riding at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Good Friday. Well, Good Friday's not a holiday for everybody. And there's nothing in the ordinance that says anything about that either.
Mhm.
The nuisance ordinance does have restrictions on Sunday, which so far nobody's complained about Sundays. So I assume he's not riding on Sundays.
Thank you.
So I want to know if three of you think we should proceed that way, or maybe we should be doing something else.
There was a citation in his letter to 2 or 3 different ordinances, and I haven't had a chance to look them up. I just recently got the letter to look at it. So if those of us, zoning and police and the supervisors, are satisfied that he's within those ordinances, then I think we have to go with that conclusion.
Yeah, one of them he cited was that, he could be changing the principal use of the land by riding dirt bikes. And our zoning officer said, and I agree, that that's not what that means. That, means somebody's gonna have a totally different use if it's, residential, they wanna put something commercial on it.
Right.
And then they talk about the nuisance ordinance where it states that any unreasonable annoyance or discomfort to persons beyond the boundary of such property, that would be considered a nuisance, but when it comes to noise, the law says that it has to be above a certain decibel.
Well, that's part of it. The other part of it is there are court cases that say if it's permitted as active recreation, you're fine. Plus, this is a 3.5 acre lot. This is not a 1 acre lot where he's gonna bother other people around him. This is 3.5 acres.
And then the other ordinance was that if there's a woodland, hedgerow, or vegetation, that it has to be maintained, and he has maintained that. So, Okay.
Thank you.
There is a zoning hearing on April 25th at 7:30. And it's in Bucktail Hills. It's for, well, it's here. It's here. It's for a, garage. They wanna put a.
I'll check into it.
They wanna put a detached garage, which would result in more than the number of permitted garage bays.
Could you tell us what the name of the applicant?
Sportsman.
Okay.
Oh, the streetlights are installed in Normal Crossing, the streetlights? Oh, you did? Well, I didn't know. I've been bugging
We're ahead of you.
the light company, asking, where the Exelon buildings are, up in Miller's Hill, they have approval for 2 more buildings.
Right.
When they first came in, they got approval for 4 buildings. They never did anything with the other two buildings. They have come to us now that they want to construct the other two buildings, but not for Exelon. They have two tenants that want to go in there. We're not sure, they wouldn't tell us who the tenants are. They wanted to know what they would need to do, and, we explained that they would just need to get permits for the building. However, one of the tenants wants to have a research and development division there, and that would require conditional use hearing from the supervisors. So we did tell them that they would have to, the zoning officer and I talked to them, and they would have to come in for conditional use approval for that.
If that's not the building, that's the tenant that's gonna take over.
Right.
Correct.
So they ought to be able to build the building as long as all the
Well, but,
other zoning issues and whatnot are met.
right, but supposedly the tenant has to know that they can use it for research and development before they'll agree to pay for the building.
Okay.
So that's why they wanted,
Alright.
they wanted to see what they had to do for research and development.
That's fair.
So it looks like before they construct one of the buildings, they'll have to apply for conditional use.
Yeah.
And do they have an interest in the land such that they have standing in front of us? Do they have a signed lease that they're committed to?
Not yet, they don't have anything yet. This was, actually, it was, Arthur Narden who came in. Now, I don't know what his interest in it still, I don't know if he still owns, because I know that was a whole private deal out there with who owns the land and fire, what do they call it? Some, fire organization owned the buildings at one time, so I don't know all the details of that.
There wouldn't the applicant be Exelon? They would be the only one that really would have standing.
Well, it depends if the new company had a lease,
If they have a lease, then I think the tenant could come in.
yeah.
He just has to have an interest
That's how the piece
in
of
the
paper
Yeah.
is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It would be better if the tenant come in because we could ask more specific questions.
The only other thing I wanted to bring up is how we're going to handle presenting the Schmidt easement on Monday night.
I'm going to wait for advice from our counsel, which I intend to bring up in the executive session, because I feel that there is some highly privileged information in the easement that should be preserved.
Okay, well, one way or another, the three of you are gonna figure out, because I have it on the agenda,
And that's fine, keep
and
it there.
it's gonna be discussed publicly.
Yes, that's right.
So, the three of you are gonna figure out how it's gonna be discussed.
Right.
Who's going to present it?
Is that your question? I don't.
I mean, but you guys are gonna figure all this out before Monday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lisa, are you talking about the Schmidt property?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
You could, or you could wait for Mike when he talks about public meeting policy.
Okay. Bill just gave me a few handouts, but I'm done.
Okay. Really, the only thing that I have here, we had our every 6 month, road inspection, and the three of us were taken around by our roadmaster. And he pointed out what he was doing in the near term and the farther term, pointing out that his horizon probably doesn't extend beyond 2 years because roads can deteriorate or a problem can materialize that would require a heavy expense very quickly, flood or such things as cave-ins. And in a number of cases, we've reviewed trucks running off the road and causing some damage, particularly large trucks when they're coming around corners. They tend to have to back and hitch in some cases. They even can't do that very well. But the roads, my impression, I haven't talked to any of you folks about it, but my impression is that our roads are in very, very good condition, and they're being watched consistently for their wear and tear and conditions. Is that clear?
Particularly, there were no big potholes.
That's right, they're not, you know. In that regard, there's going to be some fairly heavy work done on Hillendale, and that's going to be between Byard and the railroad bridge. That is getting an abnormal amount of heavy wear from the mushroom facility that's been constructed now for a couple of years. And we have to make sure that that road holds up. And it really wasn't constructed for that kind of heavy traffic, so it's showing.
And it's narrow too.
And it's a little too narrow,
Okay.
that's right. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I lack a little knowledge in this area, but I assume that trucking companies or companies with trucks pay state taxes, road use taxes, and that goes to the state. Does the state reimburse you for work on Hillendale for that reason? No?
You can probably answer some of that, because we do get liquid fuels monies.
Yeah, that's
It's a little bit different. But the answer to your question is not directly. I think that's the easiest.
For example, we get about $180,000 a year for liquid fuels, and then we get about $25,000 a year for the state roads that we turn back to the state, the roads there. The work on Hillendale is costing about $500,000.
Yeah.
So I assume that, and I'm sure you thought of this anyway, going back to that mushroom company and asking for some
That should have been done before they were
That's
approved.
correct.
Little late.
Little late.
There are 18 triaxles go over that road every day.
And just so you know, yesterday I did put a link on the website showing all the road work that's going to be done this year. So everyone can see. Because people have been calling about 9 gates, and that's actually working Delaware. Not the township.
I talked about the task force issue, and that's going to be temporarily suspended. Public meeting policy is still in work in progress. That which was read at the last meeting will be probably very modified. That sounded a bit too onerous when I read it, and I think we're going to calm it down, and we'll have probably more to say about it Monday night.
Well, now, the three of you still have to
We have to do that.
get together about it, and
And if
before
we
you-
don't, we will postpone until the following month. If our work schedule doesn't.
Mike, on this subject, I have 3 handouts for you
Okay.
that I wanted Lisa to.
Well, you know what I'll do, since they haven't discussed
No,
it
they-
yet,
right.
I'm gonna give them your handouts, and
Yeah.
they can, when they get together,
Yes,
they can discuss
exactly.
them.
And that was my intent.
Good.
This is too voluminous to look at or even consider. I only wanted to introduce it to you.
Appreciate it.
The first item is the School District of Philadelphia's policy, what they use. They have an issue much bigger than we have here. That is the number of people that need to communicate, the kind of issues they have. The rules which are that I've given you, that they've adopted October 2011, are considerably more restrictive, onerous,
Indeed.
than what you were proposing as a committee. And if this became, or something like this, your starting point, the generosity with which you'd be allowing more open communications would be readily apparent, versus a public opinion that we're starting off being draconian by not allowing things.
Good point.
In any event, it offers a number of things to consider. I'm not saying that they all are appropriate, but it's just something to look through and consider.
Okay.
The second is a court case that was decided in 2009. It's a hard name to pronounce, LCAC versus City Council Philadelphia, in which 2 issues were considered and resolved in favor of the City of Philadelphia. And that is, under the Sunshine Law, whether special meetings need to have a quorum of officers present, and the court said no, that they do not. And the second issue was, would issues or comments extraneous to the agenda have to be permitted in a meeting? And the court said they do not in this ruling. But I would strongly suggest, I'm not an attorney, I would strongly suggest that this is only a starting point to think about this. And I don't propose that it's an absolute answer without knowing the legal point of view, and the township has attorneys that might want to consider it. But it is the direction at that moment of where the court was looking in the City of Philadelphia.
Okay.
The third item is concerns allowing public comments when Berndt and firm comes in the May meeting to talk about the financial statement audits. And I have a write-up that describes the sunshine law and how it applies in this situation. And a resolution I'd like you to consider, not today, but after you study things and consider what your policy should be on what public comment should be allowed in the May meeting. But again, this is all for your consideration later, and
Yeah, they really need to.
there's no way you can consider this today, and I don't need for you to
Well,
consider
I
it today.
appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Right.
It's very good input and helpful.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I actually do have one more thing.
Okay.
In the past, Roger and Albert and I have attended HOA meetings. We went to one recently, Falcons Lair, that we were asked to come to talk about the poll and everything. I was going to suggest that, because Roger and Albert and I still plan on attending one a year for each HOA, when it's possible for us to do that. I was going to suggest that a supervisor alternate going with us. So, you know, it's better to go one meeting, but I just don't think we need all three going. But I thought it might be good if, you know, and I don't even know if it's necessary to have a supervisor do it, but I think the homeowners might like it. So I didn't know if you guys would be in favor of doing that.
As long as my schedule is
Yeah.
available.
Yeah, well, what I would do is,
Yeah.
we usually know what, 8 months out,
We know quite a ways.
when we have, now Falcons Lair, we attended one in November, so I didn't know we were going to attend this one, but they invited the three of us to come to talk about the poll. So, and that was it, I didn't know about that meeting